Okay, welcome, welcome. So I am so delighted to have spent already part of the day together learning with our honoree tonight and with others amongst our community. So delighted to continue our celebration. Again, you know who I am, but just to be formal about it. So I'm Lynn Liberman. I work as a community chaplain. I'm from the Twin Cities, and I'm also the chair for Achenu, NAJC Biachad. And delighted to be here tonight as we honor our colleague and friend. I'm going to be formal now, Rabbi Dr. Naomi Kalish. For the entire program, just so you know where we're going for the evening, we'll have a few words and a motzi before you begin your salads. And then the program officially of the honoring. And after that, we have a few other pieces where we're going to remember some distinguished colleagues who have passed away this past year, which is our custom at NAJC to acknowledge our colleagues and the beautiful work they have done in their lives. And then finally, some final presentations and a few words as we will close. It's fortuitous, I think, for us to be gathering. It's been mentioned a few times. There's nothing like doing chaplaincy in person. Right? We all experienced it during COVID on a screen. And I think we learned a lot about that, but it is much more impressionable and important to us. And doing so in light of this week's Parsha, Bamidbar, right? Our work doesn't exist in a wilderness. We exist by being in space together. Our organization, of course, is across the United States, Canada, Israel, and I don't know, maybe we'll acquire some chaplains from other areas of the world as well. I love when I sit on the executive board and the board meetings, and we've talked about, we were on Zoom before anybody else knew that they were going to be on Zoom on the board. That's how widespread we are as chaplains, but how wonderful to be together and out of that vast wilderness to be in this one space. So together, Achenu, we are as chaplains doing the very best that we do, which is to be in person, bringing our best care one to another in our spiritual, emotional, and sense of being biachad together. So it is my pleasure to now introduce our colleague, Rabbi Michal Springer from New York Presbyterian. Please come on. And also ACPE to share with us some words of a Devar Torah. Thank you, Lynn. And congratulations to Rabbi Dr. Naomi Kalish. Wonderful to honor you tonight. And as I was preparing this Devar Torah, I was thinking about the themes of your career, and they show up in really beautiful ways in the Haftarah this week from the book of Hosea. And I want to look at two verses in particular. It's actually more than that, but the very end. V'charati lahem brit bayom ahu im chayat hasadeh ve'im of hashamayim v'remes hadama v'keshet v'cherev u'milchama eshbor min haaretz v'hishkavtim lavetach. And in that day I will make a covenant for them with the beasts of the field and with the fowls of heaven and with the creeping things of the ground. And I will break the bow and the sword and the battle out of the land, and I will make them to lie down safely. You can hear the language of creation in the verse with the creeping things and the in the sky and on the ground. And there's this promise of in this brit, in this covenant, that there will be a new creation. And we're at a particular moment where we're all in need of a new creation. With the amount of suffering that we've witnessed over the last many months. And Naomi, you've dedicated yourself to being part of healing in this world, both the healing in the chaplaincy sphere and the healing in the multi-faith peace work that you spoke so beautifully about this afternoon. This verse ends with V'hishkaftim lavetach, that God is going to allow us to lie down with a sense of bitachon, security, safety, feeling secure in this world.
That's not an easy promise. We don't live in a world where having bitachon is so readily accessible all the time. And in last week's Parsha, there's a verse that my Rabbi, John Kalmanovsky, lifted up yesterday that says, "V'natati shalom ba'aretz, v'shachavtem ve'ein macharid." So it's a very similar spirit. I will grant peace in the land, and you shall lie down untroubled by anyone. And Rashi says that Hashalom shakul keneged hakol. Peace is assessed as being equivalent to everything else. That's how valuable it is. So when we're promised this security and this new creation, it gives us a hope that despite the devastation that we live with in this world, that there will be a possibility of a new creation that will usher us into a new time. It's not always easy to hold on to. You gave some beautiful examples of what gives you hope in this world. And I have long said that I think that CPE is about peace, that we bring together people from across many differences and we learn to talk to one another and we foster practices of spiritual care that enhance the possibilities of peace in this world. And I feel that now more than ever, that we must come together across differences if we will be part of establishing a bitachon, a security that is not enacted through force, because we will always bump up against the limitations of force, but the kind of bitachon that comes from a spiritual walking in this world. And I know that you have committed your life to that. So in spiritual care, we come into those places of disintegration, of disorientation, and we find a way of shoring up possibilities for the chizuk, the strengthening. And the last couple of verses here of the Hosea say that in a particularly beautiful way. And this is the verse from, or it's two, the verses from wrapping tefillin. Ve'arastich li le'olam, ve'arastich li b'tzedek u'b'mishpat u'b'chesed u'b'rachamim, ve'arastich li be'amunah v'yadat et Adonai. And I will espouse or betroth you unto me forever. And I will betroth you unto me in righteousness and in justice and in loving kindness and in compassion. And I will betroth you unto me in faithfulness, and you shall know God. The wrapping tight, which is part of this being betrothed, comes when we're feeling far away, when we're feeling that disorientation, that being drawn in, that is at the heart of chaplaincy, of having people feel tzedek u'mishpat, chesed and rachamim, that the side of the judgment and the side of the compassion, they have to be held together. And when we hold them together, we are able to know God. So many people we walk with are in desperate disorientation. And when we still show up and walk with them, we know that we are part of them experiencing God with them and knowing God, a God of love and compassion, a God who promises to walk with us in this world and keeps us in touch always with the vision of peace, a new creation that will bring us to a time when all people can live on this land, on all lands, with true security and love. Mazal Tov, Naomi, thank you for your inspiration in your work and your career and the teaching that continues to inspire me and all of us.
It's our pleasure, my pleasure, to invite our colleague, Rebecca Carl, who's a cantor, board certified chaplain, staff chaplain at Children's Hospital in Philadelphia, an NAJC board member, and our 2025 conference chair, to lead us in Hamot.
Where? Oh, it'll come back around. It's rotating, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can't go back, but it will come back. Yeah. It may take a little while to come back, but it will come back. Okay. I invite us all to join together. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. B'teavon, everyone. I'm gonna bring your hold up.
So I'm sorry to interrupt, I don't know, the food of the heart, which is the conversation, or the food of the stomach, which is the kemach. Both are kemach. We have a special flipping of our order tonight because we want to make sure that Naomi's three daughters have a chance to share some thoughts with us. I can completely be in concert with why they need to do this now. Go women's basketball. I gotta say it. I gotta say it. Okay, so we're if you all will indulge us, we're delighted to invite up Adina, Shoshana, and Talia Scheinberg to share with us some of the thoughts about their mom.
Hi, everyone. There are so many countless ways in which our Ima has impacted our lives through nurturing us, inspiring us, and teaching us. So we have decided to approach our words today through something that she loves, Jewish text.
Ima has instilled a love of Judaism within us all, valuing, just to name a few, kavod, respect, tzedakah, charity, kehillah, community, hachnasat orchim, welcoming others, and lastly, the value of lilmod, to learn.
We found it fitting to each choose a Jewish text and pair it with a memory of a time in which Ima taught us a lesson or something that we take with us each day.
So whenever people ask me what my mom does for a living, I would answer that she provides spiritual care to individuals in need. But recently, I learned that it's a lot more than that. Following my mom's trips this past year to Pittsburgh for the trial for the Tree of Life shooting, and Israel, which included visiting hospitals and IDF soldiers who were wounded on October 7th, she shared with me the concept of compassionate listening through stories in which she opened her ears and her heart to every person she interacted with. I'm thinking about how my mom's luggage got stuck in Israel's airport this December. So when she was a trip to a clothing store to buy new shirts to wear, quickly turned into hearing stories from the woman who worked in the store, stories from October 7th, and her words of wisdom and words of inspiration. I learned that for my mom, it is just important to speak to individuals such as the woman in the store as it was to speak to anyone else that she would be paying the official visits to on these trips. While she's talking to these people, she's listening and learning from everybody as she recognizes that each individual brings something special to the table. So the quote that I chose is from Pirkei Avot 4:1, and it reads, Ben Zoma Omer, Ezehu Chacham Halomed Mikol Adam. Ben Zoma said, who is wise? One who learns from every person. Ima knows that it's important to learn from others. She strives to learn each person's story, whether they're Jewish or not, and help them feel valued. She approaches each and every conversation with the same very high levels of compassion, attention, and care. And these values have become very important to me as well, and I hope to carry them with me through all walks of life.
When Ima interacts with others, regardless of whether their backgrounds are similar to or different from her own, she sees the humanity in each individual and embodies the value of empathy. While our society often chooses to divide over cultural differences, Ima chooses to embrace cultural diversity as a reason for celebration and communal gathering. I cherish so many memories of engaging in interfaith dialogue alongside my Ima, including sitting alongside her at Sisterhood of Salam Shalom conferences, planning events together for multi-faith teens in Hudson County, New Jersey, tagging along for her friend's ordination as a minister, or for an iftar service at a local mosque, and inviting Muslim friends to our Passover Seder. Each day, Ima lives out the values of the famous pasuk from Vayikra 19:18, Ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, love your neighbor as yourself. But she also lives out the values of a lesser-known pasuk from the same chapter, Ke'ezrach mikem Adonai yihyeh lachem hager hagar etchem ve'ahavta lo kamocha ki gerim hayitem be'eretz Mitzrayim. The strangers who reside with you shall be to you as your citizens. You shall love each one as yourself, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. The religious or ethnic backgrounds of others does not hinder Ima's ability to see each person as a human being worthy of compassion and dignity. This value has guided her interactions with friends, family members, hospital patients, colleagues, bodega owners, taxi drivers, and countless other lives she has touched.
Ima often comes to me to talk about all things related to language, as it is one of my great interests and passions. One time she was talking about the verb describing chaplaincy work, saying that she has always said chaplains provide spiritual care, as Shoshana talked about earlier. But that isn't just one word, it's multiple, unlike other professions, which can be summarized in one verb: to treat, to teach, to lead, etc. But chaplains don't simply provide, and it also wouldn't feel quite right to say that what chaplains do is care. No, they provide care, though saying that isn't as snappy as saying that a judge judges. So why don't chaplains have their own verb to describe what it is they do? I then got carried away talking about my favorite language, Yiddish, and how many of its verbs are similarly made with two or more words. Even something as straightforward as to love requires this grammatical construction that is confusing at first. We get liebhaben, which includes the verb for to have, though the meaning is simply to love. I can tell that in my mom's work, she both provides and cares, in addition to providing care, and she also loves. Ima's favorite biblical story is that of Hagar, and that itself says a lot about her. Not many people focus on the story of a non-Jewish woman being mistreated by our first matriarch, but I think that is why it speaks to my mom so much. She is deeply passionate about building connections with people from other religions, cultures, and ethnicities, and learning from them. A pasuk from the story reads, Vayivkach Elohim et eineha v'tereh be'er mayim. And God opened her eyes, and she saw a well of water. Ima opens the eyes of all those around her, whether physically or metaphorically. Okay, usually metaphorically. She has opened my eyes to the significance of the language we use when describing the work someone does, and to the story of Hagar, whose name could also be read as the stranger, and why it is just as, if not more, important to provide care to those outside our community as it is for those inside.
Also, Ima, we love you.
So, Rabbi, beautiful words. We're going to resume dinner. And I don't know if it's the New York Lynx or the Indiana Fever. Thank you. Thank you. Fix them up. All right. We're delighted to be together and again, continue to finish dinner. At this time, we really have quite a number of people that have come together with a variety of words and expressions to honor our honoree. Some of them are going to be on video and some are actually able to be with us here tonight. So to begin with, we're just delighted to begin with words from the Chancellor of the Jewish Theological Seminary, Dr. Shuli Rubin Schwartz.
When Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel addressed the American Medical Association on the topic, the patient as a person, he noted that from the perspective of the love of God, the work of healing and the work of religion are one. He recognized in 1964 that clergy of all religions have a critical role to play in healing. It then took vision, time, and energy for chaplaincy to evolve within the Jewish community into a professionalized, structured, and enduring program. Happily, that process reached its fullness some 15 years ago with the inauguration at the Jewish Theological Seminary of the Center for Pastoral Education, founded by Rabbi Michal Springer. For the last 5 years, Rabbi Naomi Kalish has lovingly and expertly served as the Harold and Carol Wolf Director of this center. And we have all benefited enormously from her prodigious wisdom and experience. A past president of Neshama, the Association of Jewish Chaplains, Rabbi Kalish has worked in a wide variety of chaplaincy settings, including pediatric hospitals, palliative care, interfaith collaborations, and ethics boards. Ordained by JTS in 2001, she earned a PhD degree from NYU in 2021 with a dissertation on the history of clinical pastoral education in Jewish communities. In 2022, Rabbi Kalish was asked to join a team of chaplains who became courthouse healers during the trial of the perpetrator of the 2018 murders at Pittsburgh's Tree of Life Synagogue. Other chaplains who had aided traumatized survivors at Charleston's Mother Emanuel Church became a model for what Rabbi Kalish and her colleagues offered to survivors and surviving family members during the Pittsburgh trial. As Rabbi Kalish aptly put it, the courthouse in Pittsburgh was a Beit Mishpat, a house of law, and also what I am calling a Beit Refuah, a house that could provide some healing. She played exactly the role that Heschel had highlighted in 1964. In the many months since the horrors of October 7th, all religious counseling and healing professionals have taken on new responsibilities. Part of Rabbi Kalish's response was her visit to Israel, during which she took part in discussions with colleagues about the special needs for spiritual and emotional care in the wake of the attacks and the ensuing war. Rabbi Kalish has been a skilled and beloved teacher in many settings over the years, bringing her passion for healing to a variety of schools that train Jewish clergy and professionals. As director of the center at JTS, she continues to teach while also providing outstanding supervision to instructors in the growing program. Just recently, she announced the latest in a visionary expansion of the center, a new multi-faith MA in spiritual care and counseling. Through her leadership, Rabbi Kalish is now writing the next chapter in the history of Jewish spiritual care. JTS takes enormous pride in her accomplishments.
We're delighted that the Chancellor could join us tonight through video. There are a few events happening in the New York area that she was not able to be here in person, but to our honor and to Naomi's honor, we're glad to have words from her this evening. As I said, there are quite a few wonderful people amongst us, colleagues, former colleagues, and students. We'd like to invite Chaplain Leslie Kersner, who is a retired chaplain, actually, from New York. That does happen at some point. Okay, from New York Presbyterian Hospital, and she's on the administrative team for Tikva Kipolan. Sounds a very exciting program. Just delighted to have you here. Thanks for having me.
How many of you know Naomi? Raise your hands. Okay. I want to talk to you about the people who don't know Naomi. They don't see her coming. I know the first time I saw her, she was going because she was walking down the hall in 1999 at Valley Hospital. This really cool hippie with a backpack, and all she was doing was walking down the hall. And I was like, who is that compelling woman? But I knew that somehow she was unaware of how compelling she was. And then she wouldn't always talk about the things she was doing. So one day I'm in our office, we were managers together, and I'm looking at Eitz Chaim and I'm flipping through, and I looked at the beginning and there's her name as editor. And I was like, you never told me this? In addition to other people, she was one of the editors of Eitz Chaim. Then more recently, I had called her and she didn't get a chance to call me back. And I was like, I know she's doing something. So I went on Facebook and there she was in Abu Dhabi doing a program, of course, on peace building. So it's really quite a thing. And this is serious humility that she possesses. She literally wrote the book on being a child in a hospital. She wrote The Tree of Me and an accompanying workbook when she was the coordinator at the Children's Hospital of New York, all while being so busy doing so many other things. She would put together sermons and interfaith services in record time. Then there's her response to trauma, some of which we've already heard about this evening. When the Newtown massacre occurred, she quietly went about writing and preparing a healing service that had everyone in the room crying. She held everyone in that hospital in a small space. There was Hurricane Sandy, where she couldn't go home for a week because her home was completely underwater. And we slept over at the hospital. She made sure everybody was safe before she had her chai latte and other emergency supplies. We then went through the horror of the Pulse nightclub massacre, which at that time was the worst mass shooting our country had ever seen. We were tasked with putting vigils together for every campus and coordinating them so that we could be present with chaplains in the chapel, people just walking around the halls, providing emotional and spiritual support. You've already heard about the work she did with the Tree of Life Synagogue, the deadliest attack on any Jewish population in our country. She helped contain our grief in that by having us write letters to the congregants and their families. We did shifts again doing vigils, and we're trying to be as present for our employees as we could while everyone was in horrible grief. Naomi then went out to Pittsburgh last year to help heal the community during the trial, as you've heard. Her heart is as big and deep as the ocean. And then there's her smarts. I had seen her present a few seminars when I first knew her, but it wasn't until she was my presenter at my consultation and assessment that I knew that she was psychic. Because she sat there and pinpointed things, and I was like, how on earth would you know that from my case study? And I, to this day, use the teaching that she gave me for what not to say in a patient visit. How did she pinpoint those things? Anyway, I see some of her CPE students here. Can you raise your hands? Yes, and there was somebody else. Okay. And many have gone on to stardom. Oh, president of NAJC. Naomi has a secret weapon for teaching. It's called killing them with kindness. Her students were her priority, and she would try hard to understand each and every one of them, no matter how crazy they made her. Naomi hadn't taken on enough already, so she embarked on researching the history of CPE, going all the way back to the caveman. Out in the Midwest, she would go to the library. Nobody knew where she was. Nobody knew she was getting a PhD except a couple of us, but that is a little crazy. Not to tell people that. Naomi takes the term interfaith to a whole new level. As you know, she works with civil and global leaders. She tries to heal the world by working with organizations like Salam Shalom, which people have referenced tonight. She takes halakha seriously and treats everyone with respect and love. Her capacity for caring is unlimited. But when she was inducted as the president of NAJC, our boss and friend, the Reverend Dr. Beth Glover, wrote that Naomi had an iron fist and a velvet glove. And we all know a little bit about that. But her punches are mostly given with sensitivity. You don't see her coming. I always knew that Naomi loved intrepid, magical figures, Wonder Woman, characters from Star Trek, but I finally spied her coming out of a phone booth one day and realized that she really was Superwoman.
Allison a chance to line up another video. Naomi's teaching has been both local and abroad, and her students' learnings have traveled with them wherever they have gone. This is Tali Broder, Rabbi Tali Broder, who is in Israel, a former CPE student of Naomi.
What an honor and a joy to be able to speak about Rabbi Naomi as a Rabbi Naomi, your reputation preceded.
Sorry, everyone, I'm just gonna raise the volume.
As a student at Yeshivat Maharat, had to take a unit of CPE. What an honor and a joy to be able to speak about Rabbi Naomi as a CPE educator. Rabbi Naomi, your reputation preceded you. As a student at Yeshivat Maharat who had to take a unit of CPE for my requirements, I was intimidated even before I met you. What I remember most in that initial interview with you weren't the questions that you asked or the answers that I gave, but rather how at ease I felt in your presence, how we laughed and connected over so many things. Rabbi Naomi, you have a way of making people feel so at home with you. My first unit of CPE was a whirlwind, intense, scary at times, but it was an experience that forever changed me and forever changed the trajectory of my journey. You opened our eyes and our hearts to the world of CPE in a way that was gentle and loving. By your very way of being, you modeled for us what it means to be a chaplain par excellence, with your deep compassion, your grace, and your supportive presence. You helped us grow in ways we could never imagine. Helped us to see that we were stronger than we could ever believe. Nudged us ever so gently to challenge us in our work. You are a devoted teacher who taught us not only what it means to be a chaplain, but what it means to be a human in this way. You became not only a teacher of sacred living, but a Rabbi and a friend. You continued to show up for your students at our ordination from yeshiva, and for me, you were there when I needed advice on how best to continue my CPE education and journey. Your door was always open, and so was your heart. I remain indebted to you, Rabbi Naomi, for your teachings, for lovingly taking me by the hand and showing me the beauty of chaplaincy forever. This honor is so incredibly deserved tonight. You have brought so much comfort and healing to this world with your teaching, with your activism, and with your care. May God continue to bless you as you continue to inspire and impact all those around you to shine more light. From you, I learned chaplaincy can truly can truly fix and heal this world that is so desperately in need of healing. Thank you from the depths of my heart for showing all of us the way. Mazel tov, mazel tov, mazel tov.
So, okay. Beautiful words. So now we invite your husband, Rob Scheinberg, who's rabbi, two rabbis in their household, rabbi of Congregation United Synagogue of Hoboken.
Yeah, it goes without saying, my heart is bursting with pride right now. And I feel that way a lot. I feel that way almost constantly. Actually, I've had many opportunities to feel that way in the context of NAJC also, which makes this a very, very special time. So when I think about so many previous moments, I've been overflowing with pride about what you have accomplished in your work as a chaplain, an educator, and a scholar, and a writer, administrator, an organization leader, an interfaith activist, and a bridge builder. I could just think of just one example to share, which is several years ago, we ran into a rabbi who was a former CPE student of yours. And so you introduced us to each other. And then he turned to me and said, "She's my Rebbe for compassion." And that's of course true for me as well, though I could make a much, much longer list of the things that you are my Rebbe for and my source of inspiration for, both in my personal life as my partner, but also in my professional life. And there are things that I use every day as a rabbi and as a teacher that I learned from you. One of which is just having a vision for what intergroup relations are supposed to be like as a way to heal our world. And also in hindsight, when I think about when we first met 35 years ago, that the seeds of so many of your outstanding qualities and the leadership roles that you play were evident then, as well as the impact that you've had on me as a colleague, in addition to a partner. So we were glad to collect several photos that reflect various moments in your career, from your certification as a chaplain by NAJC. So you're serving as a chaplain and CPE educator to, as I think you just said, something like nearly 40 CPE groups, to your interfaith leadership locally in the New York area, New Jersey, and nationally and globally, and your role at JTS, and including many photos of many of your mentors and colleagues and students to try to convey just a little bit of our pride in what you've accomplished, all the lives that you've touched in your professional leadership so far. You like to quote Dracheha Drachei Noam. It's true about you, Noam. And it's just an amazing zechut to be on this journey together with you. So I think we have to press the button for.
Great to have somebody who knows how to do all this tech stuff. Thank you, Allison. It's our honor to now invite the president of NAJC, Rabbanit Alyssa Newmore Thomas, who's the Rabbanit at Congregation Tibot Shalom in Teaneck, New Jersey, also a staff chaplain at New York Presbyterian Columbia University Irving Medical Center. Alyssa.
I'm so emotional after watching that. Is anyone else feeling that? I know so many people in the pictures and it's so beautiful to see that journey. I just feel very moved. So thank you for creating one. We are so grateful, as has been said many times, that you are with us here in person tonight. I want to acknowledge that this room is full of heart and love and devotion to Naomi and NAJC. You guys give in so many different ways. And there's also a lot of people who are not here, but I would just like us to bring into our hearts and minds that they are. And I'm thinking of all of the students. You said over 40 CPE student groups. All of the students who have learned from you, including myself. All of the patients and families and staff members whose lives have been touched because of you. All of the rabbis who are better rabbis because of you. And all of those people aren't physically in this room right now, but they are with us because your Torah is here with us. And so I just want to acknowledge for a moment that that fullness is here. It is NAJC's privilege and honor to celebrate Rabbi Dr. Naomi Kalish. As NAJC president and a former CPE student of Naomi's, I cannot thank Naomi enough for her leadership. I got involved in NAJC leadership because of Naomi. I would not be involved in this way. I wouldn't have had the access. She's the one who helped guide me and connect me and tap me to step up when it was time. Naomi, of course, is a past president of NAJC, as has been said. And having served and led NAJC both through joyful and complex times, she's helped make it the strong organization and the presence that we need, especially now more than ever in the Jewish chaplaincy world and in the wider chaplaincy world. NAJC is truly strong because of you today. When I met Naomi, she was president, and I remember being in awe of how she managed to be getting a PhD, working full time, leading the Jewish chaplaincy world, being an amazing mom and loving spouse. Like, how does she do it all? And I think Leslie said that so beautifully. All of us, I think, have had the opportunity to sit and look at how amazing you are and how much you give, and also wonder, like, how can a person do that? Like, how do you have time? Where does it go? And be so like humble and calm and kind. You are so relaxed and humble about all of it. And you are also constantly creating change and growth in our field and in your students through humble and genuine care. You do so with, Chaplain Joel Burning talks about the million intricate moves that always have to be made in every situation. And I feel all of us see that today. And those of us who've had the privilege to be your student have felt you make those moves in our hearts, as was beautifully said in some of the videos as well. As a Jewish ACP educator, you have given Jewish chaplaincy a voice and have been a Kiddush Hashem to so many students of all faiths. And I think that you spoke to that beautifully earlier, and others have said as well, what it is to teach people of all faiths how to show compassion and kindness is the ultimate sign and image, as Rabbi Michal said, of peace. Since your presidency, you have continued to be a leader in NAJC and in the chaplaincy world. You represented NAJC on a mission to Israel, which you mentioned already, and you represent NAJC on the task force. You're really the ACPE representative, but like, how could you not also, hold your NAJC self too? In our task force that's combating anti-Semitism and anti-Muslim bias. You're a natural bridge builder, and you're able to speak to everyone with a sense of truth and empathy and vision. And I've seen, as was sort of alluded to earlier when I asked the question when you were teaching so beautifully, I've seen in real time, and I'm sure many of you have as well, what it is for there to be a very tough conversation and for Naomi to offer heart, perspective, and expansiveness when perhaps others aren't feeling it. Yesterday's Parsha concluded Sefer Vayikra with the brachot and klalot, the blessings and the curses. And Chazal specifically fixed our parshiot such that we read the blessings and curses before Shavuot, as well as before Rosh Hashanah. And this is because they are both New Year's in our calendar in different ways. And we want to start the new year by ending negativity and suffering and curses from the previous year and start fresh with only brachot, with only blessings. This year specifically, we feel that need with every fiber of our beings. And we pray that this time marks the return of the hostages, the end of suffering and anti-Semitism, the end of terror and cruelty of Hamas and its counterparts against all people. And then we are greeted with blessings. This is how we end Sefer Vayikra, and we say Chazak, Chazak, B'di Chazak, as was also beautifully mentioned earlier. We build strength by facing the suffering, not by denying it. We face the klalot that are in life. We don't deny them. We say them out loud. As chaplains, we are experts in this, in actively cultivating brachot and in not denying the suffering we're seeing in front of us. Naomi is a leader among Jews and beyond who works tirelessly to not only bless others and be a blessing herself, but to teach and empower others to become well springs of blessing and strength themselves. And that's a different kind of leader. We can be a light on our own, but to help other people shine, that's a whole other level. Naomi, as you continue to shape our field in these complex times, may you be blessed to know the strength and heart that you have given all of us. In NAJC and ACPE and JTS and your legacy at NYP, you are beloved by your students and colleagues. You model what it is to face suffering and cultivate blessing. So it is truly my blessing today to celebrate your neshama, all you has given to neshama as an organization, and your avoda, your service and work for NAJC. May this be the beginning of many, many more blessings to come. Mazel tov. Offer this beautiful and heavy award. Those all not food. NAJC.
Okay.
We're gonna have Naomi come up and speak, right? Okay, good.
So we chaplains like to listen. And I've done a lot of talking today, and I think as a CPE educator, I love talking also. But what draws, I think, all of us to the field is really loving to dwell in the space of hearing other people's stories. And then we use this metaphor of holding a mirror up to ourselves, or having our group or our CPE supervisor educator hold a mirror up to us. And that's all done very kind of privately. So I'm incredibly overwhelmed and honored and full of emotion, and knew it would be hard to find some words at this point to share what this means. Around JTS, word got out about this, and people kept saying like, "Oh, that's so amazing," and it's so special when it's your own professional community that honors you, you know, and it's your home, you know, your home community that's honoring you. So I'd like to actually say a few words about thrilling as it could be that I would go into a phone booth and that I am a superhero. But I want to talk a little bit about my gratitude for the many different factors and what I think has contributed to the support I've received in my career, and the ways in which the pieces in my life have been able to happen due to many different situations and circumstances and people. So first, I'd like to share that I'm grateful that I live at a time when women can become rabbis. Didn't really understand that when I applied to rabbinical school, and I've since really gained great appreciation for that. I'm grateful to live at a time when women can be chaplains. And I'm grateful to be at a time when Jews are citizens and chaplains. None of these are historical assumptions. I'm also grateful that I could enter this field as a mother. You know, you heard some of the stories of my juggling. Well, I will just tell you, it was not so smooth. And there's a few witnesses in the room. I'm grateful that when I was looking for a job as a chaplain, I was able to find one for 3 days a week. I'm grateful that when I wanted to start supervisory training, I was able to become the first part-time supervisor in training at the healthcare chaplaincy. What I'm saying is I'm grateful that there were people and institutions that would work with me in order to make it possible. And I'm grateful that when I came to NYP, I also was able to be part-time. So we all live in a historical context. And I'm sure if I lived earlier, I would have found ways to find meaningful pursuits. And I lived at a later time. But the reason why so much of this was able to happen was because there were circumstances as well as people who enabled those circumstances to take place. I can't mention all of the people by name, as we already heard, it's too many people, but I, in some broad strokes, would like to acknowledge that my entire existence in this field that has given me so much meaning and so much ability to engage what I find to be purposeful. You know, just in all of the different important relationships, my CPE educators who believed in me, both as a chaplain, as well as then as an educator, my classmates, my colleagues, my students, patients who accepted my visits, partners in doing this work of chaplaincy, the institutions I worked at, Calvary, the healthcare chaplaincy, New York Presbyterian, and now JTS, which is giving me the platform and the opportunity to build and to dream. Like to also mention that there was this term at NYP called the BFFs at work, so the best friends at work, and how important it is to have best friends in one's profession, and I'm grateful. The people I do want to mention by name are my family. They are no strangers to chaplaincy, as you have heard. I was not quite expecting all of that. CPE, as we all know, and chaplain are not parts of the general lingo in our society, but they know. And so it was kind of like at a certain point, like, but you don't know what CPE is? You know, what's the matter with you? So first I want to say something, Rob, to you, which is reciprocating back. You've been my chavruta and my love and my best friend, and to over all of these years as colleagues and spouses, to have a live at home chavruta anytime there's a text that needs deciphering or a paper that needs editing. But what I also want to emphasize and express my gratitude for is that it is only in the egalitarianness of our relationship that we have both been able to pursue our careers and to gain such fullness and fulfillment. Also, part of why my children are so familiar with NAJC and chaplaincy is because you made a commitment to have them come to the conferences. And so the year I was installed and the year, the second year of my presidency, you brought them. And that was incredibly meaningful because looking at the context that both due to the difference between the very public nature of a pulpit rabbi and the very HIPAA protected nature of a hospital chaplain, your work would just naturally be known to our children. And it was your deep commitment to our family relationships and to our children and to them knowing my work. So thank you. And that was one of the pictures from that event. And then Adina and Shoshana and Sanchia and Talia, I'm just blown away by your words throughout my chaplaincy. You have been teachers and you continue to grow and be my teachers. I'm thinking Adina, you're literally my colleague working in the same building at a partner institution at Camp Ramah at JTS, and we've learned we need to coordinate our meeting schedules so students don't get caught having to pick between us. But I very much appreciate the deep thinking and compassion you bring to the tough questions that face leaders in the Jewish community. Shoshana has stepped out, but she teaches me. She, first of all, made many of the cakes that my class celebrated their CPE units ending with, and teaches me much about sports psychology, which is very relevant to chaplaincy. It's motivation, teamwork, consequences. And Talia, you already highlighted the linguistics, but you also, I remember so fondly the many different events you joined me with, like Take Our Children to Work Day and other events too. But what I'd like to focus on now, in addition to the people, is the significance and the gratitude I have for NAJC as an organization. I've recently been thinking about some quotation I came across by Virginia Woolf in her book, 3 Guineas, that I read earlier this year. Somebody had written to her and had said, "What do you think we need to stop violence?" This was shortly after the First World War. And she wrote this long reflection. And from her perspective, she focused on gender. She saw that gender equality was what was needed. And she said that and again, to think about the time period, so she said,
women need to get an education, enter professions, and make an outsider society. So these are very interesting. So higher education, entry into a profession where they also would have be able to financially support themselves, and then create an outsider society. So what did this mean? It basically was saying, become an insider, but don't lose some perspective as an outsider. I think it maybe goes a little bit further than that, the perspective. It's about what's centered and what's not centered. It's what Wendy Cadge sometimes refers to the decentering of discourses of religion out of primary and historically as prominent religious institutions, and recentering it to where do we find people. So this idea, finding them in the margins. So this idea that you can be in a profession, but kind of marginal there. So you should always have a place where you're at the center. So she focused on gender, but I've been thinking about this in terms of being Jewish in the United States and in a predominantly non-Jewish field. Many of us move back and forth between different professional organizations, and many of us work in contexts in which we're constantly working with people who are not Jewish. But what's so important about NAJC is that we have a home base to come back to, that we have a place in which the Jewish experience, and of course it's diverse, but Jewish experience, Jewish language is centered. And I'm incredibly grateful to have had the opportunity just over these many years and continuing to be a member of NAJC. Well, JTS also, that's the big irony of my career, is coming back to a central organization. But I want to thank all of you for being here today. Today has some focus on me and I'm incredibly overwhelmed by it. But what we're doing today is coming together at an incredibly crucial time to step into a Jewish space and to maintain a space in which we can recharge ourselves, or we can speak in a natural language, and then go out and continue to go back and forth between the many worlds that we navigate. So I do have one more piece I wanted to just share, which is that when I was installed as the NAJC president, the predecessor was Rabbi Yaakov Rohn, and he gave me a gift, which, Alyssa, I'd like to give you this gift. It's a kind of funny gift, but you can come up and, which is, he was saying there's love in this field, but one also needs a gavel. And I don't know what happened to the NAJC gavel, but I bought another one. and it's the glove, the iron fist in the
satin.
Yeah.
Velvet satin? Which one?
Velvet glove.
Oh my gosh,
And
that's amazing.
I also want to say that in terms of NAJC's effect on my life, this did appeal to my family, so I actually ordered 2 this time. So in our family meetings, we'll be able to, and there's,
This will go as door by door from president to president,
yeah,
going
so,
forward. Change your hands.
Oh, wow. So thank you for all of these beautiful words. We're going to have dessert is going to be brought in, and not too long after that, so kind of enjoy it quickly. We'll move on to bench, and we still have a couple more things we want to do before our evening ends. So please take a few moments for schmooze, and dessert will be arriving. Okay, for those who are still with us, we have dessert. Please enjoy. We are, just because of time, going to adjust our schedule a little bit and go ahead and move to the last couple of things for us to do this evening together. And hopefully, to begin with, I'm going to invite our colleague, Joe Ozorowski, immediate past president. Yosef? Rob Yosef? I don't know your last name. So as many of us know, Joe is our former our immediate past president, rabbinic counselor chaplain at JCFS Chicago, to lead us in an Azkarah for our colleagues who are no longer with us.
I don't recall getting a gavel when I was elected president of NAJC. Brian doesn't either. While I have the podium at this point, I want to add my personal mazel tov to that of everyone else's for Naomi for a richly deserved honor. I was certified at the convention where she was elected president. I was there. Actually was up there with you at that moment that I got it. And to offer my thanks to the people who made tonight possible, to Lynn, who chaired it, to Alyssa, who actually envisioned this evening, and to the entire committee, but especially to Allison A. Atterbury, who is interim executive director. She's going to lose the interim very, very soon. Very, very soon. So thank you very much for all the work of making it possible. Tonight, we are remembering three of our colleagues. Not all of us knew all of them, but many of us knew many of them. Professor Sam Klagsbrun, Rabbi Lowell Kronick, and Rabbi Jeffrey Marker. I can only take about 20 or 25% credit for what I'm about to do right now. I was called to pinch in, not the last minute, but somewhere in the second half of the planning. My friend and colleague, Rabbi Louis, was supposed to do it this evening. He actually put together 75% of what I'm about to do, which means that if you're inspired by it, you give him the credit. If you don't like it, you can blame him. I added a couple things of my own. But the tradition is that every year we remember colleagues, people that we've known, people that have been a part of NAJC who have gone to their eternal rest. And I'd like to begin with a poem, the Israeli poem Zelda, her most famous poem called L'chol ish yesh shem. Everyone has a name. It was published in 1974. I'm going to do it first in Hebrew, then in English. L'chol ish yesh shem shenatan lo Elokim v'natno lo aviv v'imo. L'chol ish yesh shem shenatnu lo komato v'ofen chiyucho v'natan lo ha'ari. L'chol ish yesh shem shenatnu lo ha'arim v'natnu lo ktalav. L'chol ish yesh shem shenatnu lo hamazalot v'natnu lo shchinav. L'chol ish yesh shem shenatnu lo chata'av v'natna lo kimihato. L'chol ish yesh shem shenatnu lo sonav v'natnu lo ohavato. L'chol ish yesh shem shenatnu lo chagav v'natnu lo melachto. L'chol ish yesh shem shenatnu lo tkufot hashana v'natan lo brono. L'chol ish yesh shem shenatan lo hayam v'natan lo moto. This is Marcia Falk's translation. Everyone has a name given to him by God and given to him by his parents. Everyone has a name given to him by his stature, and by the way he smiles, and given to him by his clothing. Everyone has a name given to him by the mountains, given to him by his walls. Everyone has a name given to him by the stars, given to him by his neighbors. Everyone has a name given to him by his sins and given to him by his longing. Everyone has a name given to him by his enemies, given to him by his love. Everyone has a name given to him by his feasts and given to him by his work. Everyone has a name given to him by the seasons and given to him by his blindness. Everyone has a name given to him by the sea and given to him by his death. Without getting into too much detail, we all, I think most of us in this room know that Jewish tradition places a great deal of emphasis on the name. We have the notion of Shem Tov Kishemen Tov, as it says in scripture. And in Pirkei Avot, they give the Keter Shem Tov al Kulam, that the crown of a good name is better than many, many other crowns that we might have. And so the name represents who we are, what we've done, the legacy we leave in this world, and the imprint we leave on other people's lives. And as chaplains, we listen to people's narratives, we absorb people's stories, and the greatest honor we can do is by absorbing those of each other and supporting each other. That's why we have an organization like NAJC. And when people leave our world, we get to tell a little bit of their stories as well. So I'm going to actually share with you, I didn't write these were given to me as well they should, about our three folks that we are remembering tonight. And I'll tell you where they came from because I have the notes here, as it says elsewhere in Avod, Kol Omer Davar B'Shem Omro Mehi Geula Le'olam. Whoever says a thought, a word in the name of its original sayer brings redemption to the world, which my father-in-law used to say, don't read it Geula, read it glow, brings glow to the world. So perhaps we'll give a glow to the shamas of the three colleagues that we are remembering tonight. I'm going to speak first about Jeffrey Marker. This is a combination of people, and I'll tell you who they are. This is first from Len Louie. I learned so much from Jeff by what he taught about talking the talk and walking the walk. As a Jew, as a rabbi, as a chaplain, and a mensch. At the West Side Minyan, at the NAJC Conference Minyanim, he modeled a more spontaneous davening and teaching than we learned at the seminary. In doing so, I learned and hopefully incorporated some of his overall Torah into my being, my teaching, and my chaplaincy. This next paragraph is from Steve Schulman. Although our paths crossed somewhat when we were both at JTS, I really got to better know Jeff when we were both CPE residents at the Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center in 1991-92. And we were together at some of the early NAJC conferences. He was most kind and helpful to me as I was returning to New York and to chaplaincy. And I learned so much from his compassion to patients and to everyone who was privileged to meet him. His love of all people, commitment to social justice, smile, and sense of humor, even in difficult times, will continue to inspire all of us. This came from an RA Rabbinical Assembly gathering in memory of colleagues about him. Advocating for the poor, the oppressed, and the vulnerable were a hallmark of Jeff Marker's rabbinate, involving him in many organizations supporting such causes. He was dedicated to the cause of Israelis and Palestinians living in coexistence. Yehi Zichro Baruch. The very good name, the name of Chaplain Rabbi Jeffrey Marker will always be with us as a blessing through all of his mitzvot, as a caring colleague, teacher, friend, as well as a great defender of the downtrodden. This is from Len Louie about his teacher, Professor Samuel Klagsbrun, Dr. Samuel Klagsbrun. A Jewish psychiatrist by training, and he was present at the Jewish Theological Seminary in New York when I arrived there. His good teaching led me to the calling of chaplaincy as my rabbi. This is Len talking. I can't remember the course's name. However, it taught what to do in the hospitals. Montefiore Hospital was the weekly visitation site, with some regular debriefing and reflection with the social worker upon returning to JTS. We learned some medical terminology, what to know, what to ask of medical staff, as well as how to conduct our visits with patients. This was at a time when the term CPE was not in the vocabulary of JTS. And even though the ACP organization was housed a few blocks away at Riverside Church, it was before the era of Naomi Kalish and Michal Springer and what we know today as this marvelous center. That's me. I'm going to go back to Len. I was hooked on Sam's inspirational teaching to devote most of my rabbinate to chaplaincy. In my first year post JTS, Dr. Klagsbrun invited me to learn with and meet Dame Cicely Saunders, the pioneer of modern hospice care at the Four Winds Psychiatric Hospital. Sam, in turn, taught for many years at Dame Saunders Hospice in England and was honored to eulogize her at the funeral at Westminster Cathedral. Once again, I was inspired by the encounter with Dame Saunders, leading and serving hospice chaplaincy programs twice over the years. My experiences with Sam are not the end of the story. He was honored in the early days of what was then called the National Association of Jewish Chaplains. He was honored by NAJC for his exceptional supportive chaplaincy training for rabbis and cantors. It is my understanding that his role at JTS continued beyond the few courses of my years. He was a major supporter from the beginning of the Center for Pastoral Education at JTS, including its two directors, who are both here tonight, Rabbi Michael Springer and Rabbi Naomi Kalish, the latter whom we honor this evening. Yeh Zichro Baruch. The very good name of Professor Samuel Klagsbrun, MD, will always be with us as a blessing, in no small measure through those Cholim and families who benefit from his good teaching to students through his hands-on classes, and countless more through the Center for Pastoral Education for generations to come. Amen to that. And finally, the Azkarah, the remembrance of Lowell Kronick. This comes from Cecile Azkarah. And I have a word or two of my own I'm going to add at the end. Let me tell you a little bit about the Lowell Kronick I knew. Lowell, the professional chapter, Lowell, the passionate Jew, Lowell, the protector and lifeline of his beloved Faye. Lowell never did anything unless he did it well. No shortcuts for Lowell. No, that's Cecile's no. Lowell insisted on being professionally trained as a chaplain. He not only took the required number of CP training units, he went for more training, studied longer hours, extra hours, and insisted on the same for others in his capacity at the VA. Others can speak more to those accomplishments of his than I. Lowell was a passionate Jew. As he worked most of his entire professional life, Lowell assured that his own personal religious standards were maintained, as well as assuring that these workplaces became a welcoming environment for all. Lowell became an Or LaGoyim, a light to others in spreading his own passion for Judaism in his work and interaction with others. At the same time, his goodness, kindness, gentleness, and sensitivity to others earned him respect from others. With all of his professionalism, I saw Lowell as the passionate and continual protector of Faye. Lowell held her hand, both literally and figuratively, and walked by her side as her protector. How do I know all this? Because I worked with Lowell in NAJC. I saw him as became a part of a handful of Jewish chaplains who helped shape this small baby organization and grow it into where it is today, and eventually became president. His insistence on professionalism and his passion to ensure that NAJC reflect all Jewish chaplains continued throughout his entire career. There's a picture of Lowell as president of NAJC with his board, men, women, rabbis, lay chaplains, all with one outlook. Kol Yisrael Arevim Zeh Bazeh. I think, this is Cecile saying this, I think of three words when I think of Lowell: gentle, loyal, professional, maybe a little stubborn. Lowell Kronick certainly left a mark. Now, I'm going to add a word of my own, because I had a relationship with Lowell that extended before NAJC. When I was serving as a shul rabbi in Long Island, before I had gotten interested in chaplaincy, but when I was doing my doctoral work in pastoral care, I brought Lowell out to my shul in Elmont, Long Island, to speak about chaplaincy. And I got to meet him. I drove him there. He lived not far from where we were. He was in New Hyde Park, working at what was then called Long Island Jewish Medical Center. It's called something else now, Northwell. I don't know what it is now. I got to talk to him. I got to meet him, and he impressed me. He was one of my early models. The idea that an Orthodox rabbi can be an effective chaplain and be pluralistic and be all these other wonderful things and still maintain one's status and standards. And when I came out with my first book, he wrote, 1995 was the year, he wrote a glowing review for the NAJC publication at the time. So he and I kept up over the years, and he was a prince of a rabbi and a prince of a chaplain and a wonderful representative. And I'm just proud and touched to be able to say these few words in memory of three beloved and cherished colleagues who led us and served us and inspired us. So the meaning of a good name. We all have a name, as Zelda taught us, as the rabbis of old taught us. We all have something that we represent, something that is our MO, so to speak, our moniker, but it's more than just a title. It represents who we are and what we do and the legacy that we leave in this world. May their souls be bound up, however you define that, in the bodies of eternal light, however you define that as well. I'm going to ask everybody to rise for a moment of silent reflection. And following two things. We're going to recite the memorial prayer, and then we're going to say a kapitel. We're actually going to sing the kapitel Tillim, a psalm together. El Mole Rachamim Shochein Bamromim Hamtzei Menucha Nechona Tachas Kanfei HaShechina B'malos Kedoshim Utahorim Kizor Akia Mazhirim L'nishmos Shmuel Chaim Ben Shlomo V'Rachel Rav Shmuel Aryeh Ben Yehuda Rav Yaakov Yisrael Mordechai Ben Yosef Achana Shalchu D'Olamam Bavur Shekulon Mispalim Biad Azkarah Nishmasam Began Eden Tamid Chasam Lochein Bal Harachamim Yastirehem B'Sei Seknafav Liolamim Yitzar B'Tzar Chaimis Nishmasam Adonai Hunachal Asa Yuchu B'Shalom Mishkavam Then Nomar Amen. And now I'd like to invite everyone to join us. It's traditional to recite a psalm, a kapitel Tillim, but I thought we're chaplains, we could sing this together. And I think many of you will know the tune. If not, you can fake it or just hum along. Psalm 23. Mizmor LeDavid, Adonai Rabbi Lo Etzor, Aydin Osketshe Yar B'Seini, Amen and Othos Yedar. Nafshi Yeshovei, Nafshi Yeshovei, Yadeni L'ma'at Tzedek L'ma'at Gam Ki Elei V'geit Zalma Es La'irara Iyata Imadi Shivtecha Meshantecha Shivtecha Meshantecha Emayinachamuni Tarof Lefanai Shulchan Tarof Lefanai Shulchan Tarof Lefanai Shulchan Neged Sarerai Dishata Vashem Ben Roshi Dishata Vashem Ben Roshi Dishata Vashem Ben Roshi Kosirevaya After year the phony Vishalti Beit Adonai Leorech Yahamim Didi Rai Nai 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 Didi Rai Nai 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 Di Nai 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 Thank you very much, everyone. You may be seated.
Just a couple more moments. Joe, don't go forward. Just a couple more moments. First, I want to acknowledge a very special person in our midst, Deborah Tolushkin, who has sat before the commission successfully. We are looking forward to the future and having you join us as a certified chaplain. We'll welcome you at future events. And I'm going to invite our president up for a little something, and then he'll wish us well. Well, and then I'm last after you.
Yes, then you're. We do need to take another moment to thank Lynn and Allison and everyone involved in making this event and the whole day possible. There were so many details. There were a lot of stressful details that went into this. I mean, what you did in making this and creating this space is fantastic. So thank you from the parade to the learning to the dinner, everything. Thank you for making this possible. Okay, we wanted to take the last moment to thank our two most recent past presidents, Rabbi Brian Kinsbrunner and Rabbi Joe Zarowski. We are so grateful to both of you. Both of you have given countless years to NAJC and led us through recent years with chizuk and devotion. Brian, you brought NAJC through the pandemic. The stair got this. You brought NAJC through the pandemic. Missing out on your chance to personally celebrate much in person that you truly deserve. And we also know how much you love and make other spaces joyful for others. I've seen, I remember when you first, sort of called me to be on the exec, and we were in the car driving to one of the retreats, and it was just so, your love for NAJC is like, it's on fire. You love NAJC with everything you have. You've volunteered more hours than most of us even think possible to volunteer. And the fact that you didn't get to have that in-person experience, I think certainly makes me angry. And I absolutely want you to feel that embrace now, and we'll look for many more opportunities to celebrate that for you. You are always willing to volunteer and lead with kindness and warmth and wisdom. You and your family are at the core of NAJC, teaching and innovating in the field of chaplaincy. And you have modeled what it looks like, certainly for me, but I know for many in this room and far beyond this room, what it looks like to passionately believe and love all that NAJC represents. So we want to thank you as our outgoing past president from the board with this piece of art that says neshama, it says soul. Well, it's covered up. Right,
no, that's good. Better.
You have to keep it safe.
Better that way. Keep it safe in the car.
So thank you.
So I did a rebuttal.
Okay.
So I got a 30-second rebuttal. I have to say three things.
Why not?
So first of all, Naomi, congratulations to you. It's very funny because when I started on the board, my first real meeting as a board together was at the retreat at Pearlstone. We were sitting together. You were president-elect already at that point. And there was a call for a volunteer to be the editor of the journal. And I turned to you and I was like, that sounds interesting. And you're like, go for it. So then this is how the world passes us on. By the way, never be in a cab with me at an NAJC conference because I will find a way to get you on the board or something. Yes, President. But all seriousness, and I know it's a very small crowd tonight, but it doesn't matter if it's small or big. And I know my parents didn't actually come to this because they're coming actually in 2 weeks because it's my son's 8th grade graduation. So to come twice in 2 weeks was a little much. So please forgive that they're not here. But priorities, really, like family priorities. But all seriousness, so I really want to thank you for just acknowledging me tonight. In addition to Naomi and to everybody, because really it's like a continuation. And the past president, now I'm on the past president's committee, which is whatever it is, but I'm also doing all this other stuff. Anyways, I digress. Sorry, there's no real speech. I'm just like doing this off the top of my head. But all seriousness, I have loved the work of chaplaincy, and no matter what I'm doing, right now I'm guidance counseling, I'm teaching, I'm doing all kinds of other, I'm working with people on this, with my own business. The core of what we do as chaplains really transcends like that small thing. It's really, as nobody said this yet. So our name, nobody acknowledged that you made the change to neshama in this whole thing today. Like, seriously, like, yeah, Naomi was the one who led the charge to the change of the name. That was under you. It was a group, but it was under you. Yes, it's a complex story, but you are part of, you are really the spearhead of this. But it's in our soul. And like, no matter where we are and whatever professions we're in, whether it's direct chaplaincy work or any of these other things, we are chaplains. Like, we've learned how to do this, and we've learned how to care. And it really transcends like the small work piece. It really is everything. Other than that, I enjoyed working with everybody. I continue to enjoy working with people. And I'm so glad that we're under your leadership. And I hope the people that we've put on the board with you, in the organization, will continue to lead. I know I said this to the board, so the rest of you, the few of you who are not on the board, the people that we have been cultivating to be leaders, and the ones we hope to continue to cultivate leaders. If you're not a leader yet, and you are in this room, just wait. I don't get to tell you anymore. Just get in contact with me. I will convince you. But we are really strong going forward, especially in times like this, where I'm not sure everything feels so strong, but we as an organization are very strong. And I'm glad to have been one piece of that. And that's it. I probably could say much more, but that would require a real speech. Oh, and no pizza shop either. Joe and I have.
Thank you, really, thank you. We're so grateful. And of course, we have to thank our wonderful Rabbi Joe Zarowski. The past president, still on the board, so still very much functioning, but honestly,
Still
Brian,
stuck with me for another year and a half.
Baruch Hashem.
Oh, wow.
And really, and Brian's obviously still doing stuff even though he's not on the board. So Joe, you led us through the transition out of the pandemic and into a new era of executive directors, leading our personnel search, which we are thrilled has led to our wonderful Allison Atterbury as beginning officially this July. Full announcement coming soon to your email. Get excited. Joe has worked tirelessly to strengthen our bonds with our groups and to continue NAJC's role as, though one of the smallest, also one of the most impactful groups in the chaplaincy world. You have led us with wisdom and foresight, keeping NAJC strong and connected, including following October 7th. You represented NAJC on an Israel mission, just like Naomi as well. And I cannot imagine what NAJC would be without your leadership, now Brian's leadership, and especially given the transitions that have happened over the past year. We are strong and we have a future because of your vision. You may maybe more jovial.
Let's look at this. Look at what he's wearing. You know, those of you who know me, live long and prosper, you know.
With the bobblehead of him.
It's great.
I don't know if you want to take a 30 minutes.
Okay.
And then we'll wrap up.
I got a couple of seconds for rebuttal. It's great. I'm so touched. This was not expected. I can tell you that. I hadn't planned. Bobblehead wasn't expected. The speech wasn't expected. The award, none of it was. But I came in from Chicago, so it was worthwhile flying in this morning from Chicago and staying around for this. Wow. What can I say? I actually do have something I could say. Those of you who were at my last board meeting, the last one that I presided as president in January, heard parts of this, but most of you weren't there. And it's a slightly different version of it that I'll share with you. It's Var Torah, very quickie one, by the way. And it happens to be from yesterday's Parsha. That's why it works out so well. So in the last mitzvah in Vayikra and Leviticus is a very arcane fundraising program called Erechet. We don't do anything like it. Maybe we should. We'll solve our deficit. You know, the idea was that in ancient times, people would donate the worth a fellow human being or an object to the Beit HaMikdash, the temple. I donate the worth of Naomi Kalish, to NAJC. That would be a big donation, I think. Yeah. For example, that. And we don't do anything like that anymore. Maybe we should, maybe we shouldn't, I don't know. But tucked away in there, there's an interesting reference. As the Kohen estimates the value, that's what it should be. Mundane statement, but with the little bit of homiletic drush, we move the comma over. Comma, hakohen ken yeh. In your estimation, that's how the Kohen's going to be. It's a little bit of drush there, but when you estimate the Kohen's worth and value highly, that's how the Kohen's going to turn out. And that's how I understood my term as president, actually. In other words, I don't bring a lot on my own, but I work with good material and good people. That's the secret. I have Torah and I have all of you and the membership of the organization and the people around me. That's what gives me the strength and the inspiration and the wisdom and whatever I have to go forward and to be able to be and offer whatever dubious wisdom and leadership that I have to NAJC. I will tell you one more quick story, which I think I may have mentioned part of when I was inducted as president. When I was in CPE, one of the themes that came out a lot was that of the displaced person, my child of Holocaust survivors. That was part of I grew up in St. Louis. My childhood was the Holocaust and the St. Louis Cardinals. That's how I grew up. I can't deny it. That's what it was. Yeah, go Cardinals. I still, to this day, my Chicago friends think I'm nuts, but I still do it. But the Holocaust was a big part of it. My father spent 4 years in a DP camp. And somehow, epigenics and things like this, things affect you, in future generations. So there's this feeling being displaced wherever I went, not in a big way. I managed to fit in, but growing up as a non-Orthodox Jew in an Orthodox day school, my parents sent me to Orthodox day school, it felt odd. When I became observant later as a teenager, coming from that background in the Orthodox world, there was always something a little bit off. When I became an Orthodox pulpit rabbi, I felt a little bit off. When I worked in the non-Orthodox world, I felt a little bit off. There was always something a little bit off. I felt like a displaced person. This came out in a big way when I was taking CPE. And my supervisor, who was Sister Barbara Sheehan, my Rebbe in pastoral care, pointed out to me at the end, when I finished my last unit, I was going to certification. She said, Joe, you are no longer displaced. You have a place now. And she was right, but not in a way that I fully understood at the time. I never understood it fully until I became active in NAJC. That's where I found where my place was. Here's where I feel at home, with people who are like me, who are a little bit nuts like me, who believe with passion in the idea of serving others and being with others and listening to narratives and presence and all the good stuff that we do. That's the place where we are. That's why we've chosen this profession. We all could have done a lot of other things, but we're doing this because we believe in it and we love it, and we find that we have some skills that can help other people. So I want to thank all of you for helping me and for being with me and journeying with me. And, as they say in Klingon, the Klingon bracha is kapla, which if you know Klingon, it actually means hatzlacha, means success. There's no other word in Klingon for it. But I wish all of you not just live long and prosper, but kapla. And in Romulan, it's Jolan True, which is like shalom. It's hello, goodbye, and good wishes. I thank all of you, and I look forward to continuing to serve the NAJC country.
Our president-elect is going to have the last word.
Very quick last word. The very last word is I do want to create an opportunity of Mizuman. So we're going to do it at the end, and that'll leave people to do as they need. But we do need everybody here to be able to create the Mizuman. But before that, I actually do want to add my biggest thank yous to Allison, who miraculously helps behind the scenes doing so many things, and Alyssa for asking me to jump in. Thank you. We're going to see you again. We're going to see you in Chicago, May 11th through 14th, 2025, at the DoubleTree, One Spirit, Many Paths. Join us for an amazing conference to be. If you have questions, you can ask Rebecca. And I always say the beauty of my work, I do lots of different kinds of chaplaincy. One of the biggest ones was so thrilling to listen to Stephanie earlier, one of the biggest ones is with the elders in the community. They teach me the greatest wisdom, right? If we open our wisdom, so our ears, I could say so many things, but as my ending words, what I say to them all the time, it is wonderful, wonderful to see you. They almost always will respond, it is wonderful to be seen. Wonderful to see you all and to be together. Mizuman and Ira Tov after that.